Hi, thanks for joining us today. This is Sarah
And I'm John.
from Tudor's Bees and Gardens, and we wanted to talk to you about seed starting today. Here in North Texas, this is the time to think about starting seeds for fall gardening.
Oh, fall? I tell you, it's been so hot lately. It's hard for me to even think about fall right now.
I know we just dropped below 100 degrees. Crazy as it sounds, now is a great time to start seeds for your fall garden. We still have several months of growable season left since we have such a long growing season. Also, starting seeds for broccoli and cauliflower. Now is a good time to do that, and they'll be done right around the time we get our first frost, which will just make them sweeter.
Yeah, and we'll think about fall, and maybe it'll make me cooler.
A company called Lush Dew reached out to us. They are a family-owned company that sells seed packages. And so we agreed to work with them, and they sent us one, and it came in the mail a few days ago, and we are going to open it now.
And if you're a new gardener and looking to get started and you don't know what to plant, you should check them out. And we'll show you why here in just a second. Let's open this package that they sent us there.
There's more in here. Lush Dew Moon Calendar. Well, that was nice. This is something extra that they sent us. I'll have to figure out how it works. I've heard of planting by the moon before, and it uses the increased gravity of the full moon to, I think, to help your plant start. But, yeah, I'll have to look at it more closely. It's well packaged.
Definitely well packaged.
Yeah, you can see it's got a nice padded package inside the main envelope that it came in. It's got a snug fit. Pull that out and it looks like this. Has a seed grow guide. Okay, it tells you the planting directions for each different kind of seed.
So these are the direct instructions on how to plant your seeds.
Yes.
That could be quite handy for somebody that's just getting into gardening.
And this has on the other side, this is a year-round USDA Zone 8 seed bank. It has 32 varieties. This company makes products that are specific to your growing zone, which is really cool. So let's see what we've got in here.
Yeah, that's important to know, because if you don't, one thing, if you don't know your growing zone, you can easily find that out. The USDA grow zones were actually recently just updated this past year. And so if you don't know what your grow zone is, your hardiness zone, you can look that up and do a Google search for your zip code and hardiness zone, and you'll find out what your hardiness zone is. So this is fantastic for us. This is a Zone 8. We are in Zone 8B with the updated USDA hardiness zone. We're 8B, and this is fantastic. It gives you seeds specifically for your growing zone.
And take a look at the box. It's well padded. The containers are sitting into a foam tray themselves, so they don't come out unless you take them out. And then you can see the individual kind of seeds, and then the bottom it has labeled what it is. And this one is lavender, which they're very small seeds and there are lots of them. But even on the bigger seeds, let's see, the biggest one in here looks like peas. And those, it's got 10 seeds. But everything else has more than that. And you can see they're generous with their amounts. It's a beautiful package. It would make a great gift. Or, as John said, it's really good for somebody who's just starting with gardening.
Yeah, this should line up right
Yeah, if we
inside.
put this right inside the lid, it will show you the picture of what each of the containers are.
And what type of seed is in which container.
Yep,
So this one down here,
yep,
what
that's
is
the peppers,
these are peppers,
bell peppers.
and it tells you it's bell pepper. So if you needed to if these got mixed up on you somehow, you can tell what it is. You can put it back in the slot, and it'll line up exactly with what you got here.
The one other thing I wanted to check, how easy do they open? Okay, it's a good tight fit on there, so they're not going to come open without you taking them open, trying to open them yourself. But it takes enough force that with the small seeds, you'll need to be careful not to spill them.
So they're good tight containers.
Yeah, you try it.
Yeah, they're not going to be coming out all over the place on you. Yeah, I can see that. You can see that's a nice snug
That's got
fit.
some good seal.
Yeah. So if you are interested in a new gardener, or if you're just interested in getting a seed bank, because there are some really awesome seeds in here, these are some really good choices for growing in our Zone 8 garden. And in fact, we grow many of these things.
So those aren't peas. Those are cherry pits.
Cherry pits. These are cherry seeds.
Sweet.
So it's a really good selection of seeds specifically for our growing zone. And if you're interested in finding out more, I'll provide a link down in the description. In fact, we can give a 15% discount if you're interested, and we'll put a link for that down in the description as well.
So, yeah, let's look at some of the things that are good to grow right now. This is a growing guide that I use. It's just something I printed off from a local nursery called North Haven Gardens. We will leave the link in the description below so that if you live in the area, you can print one off if you'd like to find out when to plant different seeds and what grows well at this time. So starting August 1st, some of the seeds that are good to start, and one of the things that I really like about this growing guide is it tells you whether to start the seeds inside or whether to start them outside.
Yeah, one of the things that they list on there, you listed several things about squash. Squash is so hard for us to grow.
Yes, it is. Squash bugs we get them, but the squash vine borers are what kills our plants. I tried growing zucchini for the first time in several years, and the squash vine borers killed them all. I tried growing tromboncino squash. It's supposed to be more resistant to the squash vine borers, and they killed that too.
Yeah, it did try. The tromboncino did try to grow.
It did. We had some friends tell us that, oh, you could start squash now. The squash vine borers are done. And then a week later, I caught a squash vine borer in my yard. So if you're going to grow squash in North Texas, my advice is to cover it with insect netting so the squash vine borers can't get into it, and hand pollinate. It's more work, but at least then you can get a harvest, which is why we grow in the first place.
That's true. That's true.
I have some seeds here that I am going to start. Several herbs, a lot of lettuces, some kale. But I wanted to talk about, if you're a gardener who's new to seed starting, how do you go about it? So, like, this is parsley. Okay, on the back of the seed envelope, there is a lot of information. It will tell you how deep to plant your seeds. It will tell you how big your plant gets. It'll tell you how far apart to space them when you put them in the ground. Let's see, it tells you how tall your plant gets. It tells you how long from the time that it started to the time you can harvest. which is really good to know, especially if you have a shorter season than we do here and your time is limited. Tells you how far apart to put your rows, and once they're sprouted, how much to thin them out if you start them outside. So that's a lot of information on one packet. There's a lot of information here, and sometimes it can be confusing. If you go to the grocery store and look at all the seed starting supplies, it's like, what do I use? And my advice would be just to pick something, just try one thing and see if that works for you. Your most important thing for growing plants is going to be your soil. And let me show you what we use. The Jiffy Natural and Organic Seed Starting Mix. It's designed for seed starting, and it's roughly around $5. No, I guess it's up to $6 a bag now.
Inflation.
I know it. Okay, there are lots of methods for starting seeds. Some people will get a small container and put a lot of seeds in to get them to germinate, and then separate out the seedlings as soon as they have their first true leaves. When a seed sprouts, it gets 2 initial leaves, but after those 2 initial leaves, the next leaves are what are called true leaves. And when your plant has 2 of those, it is time to start feeding it, because your seed starting soil does not have fertilizer in it, in most cases. So let's talk about containers for starting seeds. You might want to use a cell tray. This is what I like to use for starting my onions. These cell trays, you fill a lot of little compartments here with your seed starting soil. And the advantage to using these is it gives some depth of root before you need to transplant. So depending on how fast your plants grow, if they are slower growing, you can leave them in these a little bit longer. Some plants grow really fast and you will need to take them out of these very quickly. But that's the advantage to using these, is it does give a small portion of soil where your plant can put down roots and be happy for a little while, and you don't have to, it's like as soon as it's got some green on there, transplant it into something bigger. It can stay a little longer, and then you can take the whole tray and put it outside to harden off. Let's talk about hardening off, since I mentioned that.
Well, one other real quick thing that you didn't mention is that often what she'll do, this lets you do a lot of seeds at one time, but if you leave one cell open, you can bottom water. You fill with the water using the empty one that you've left open, and that lets the water go underneath into the tray below, and you can bottom water your plants.
That is so much healthier for the plants. And it's so much easier because then you don't have to worry about the water spilling off the top. I much prefer to do it that way. So since I mentioned hardening off, that is the process of preventing shock in your plants when they go from inside to outside. To harden something off, you put it out for an hour or 2 and then bring it back in. And then each day you leave it a little bit longer until it's out all day. And that way, your plant is less likely to go into shock from the transition. Okay, sometimes people will use a container like this, just a small pot, and fill it with soil and put a lot of seeds in to germinate all at once. The advantage to that is that this doesn't take up nearly as much space as this does. The disadvantage is that you need to separate them out once they have those first 2 true leaves.
If you put a lot of seeds into that. Well, this is a 4x4?
Actually, this one's even smaller, but a 4x4 would work well too. So If you have roots that don't like to be disturbed, you don't want to use this kind of pot. It's just, what are your goals? How much time do you have for transplanting? And what kind of plants are you working with, and what do they like? If you don't have a lot of space, using, like, say I'm going to start all of one kind of tomatoes in here, and I'll do another kind in another one. And if I'm starting 10 or 12 plants in this space, that will give me a lot more space for starting plants, rather than, trying to do a bunch of trays that are this big. What I like to do is, this is a soil blocker. It's a 1/2 inch soil blocker. I have found that it is great for starting the seeds. And I've got some of the soil here that I showed you earlier. Here is a tip that I like to do. When the soil comes out of the bag, it's dry, and it takes a while for it to soak up the water. So I like to put it in a bucket and mix the water in first before I put it in the container or the soil blocker. That way I don't have to worry about the water soaking in before I can start seeds. I am just pressing the soil into the soil blocker. I want to have all of these little cubes, all the little cavities filled up with soil, because if there are gaps, it won't come out a nice little cube. So let's see how I did. Push it down, lift up, and a little piece fell out there. But you can see this has 20 little 1/2 inch spots, and they each have a little dent in the middle for starting seeds. And then you just bury your seeds in there. And when it's time to water, I just pour water into the tray and try not to get it directly onto the soil so I don't wash it away. And I have found that this works really well for me. The seeds, once they're germinated, I can pick up the little cube, and if I'm using a pot like this, fill it with soil and then put the little cube in there, and it works really well for me, and it doesn't take up as much space as this. And yet the roots are much easier to get apart than trying to do them all together in something like this. It's the best of both worlds. So I am going to start some lettuce. This particular mix is called Wild Garden Lettuce, and it is by Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. It is my favorite lettuce mix. The plants come out all different, so you get a variety of shapes and sizes and colors, and it's beautiful and it tastes delicious. Another thing I recommend is using washi tape to close your seed envelopes. That way you don't spill seeds, and it comes off easily to open and close it. Okay, these are 1/8 to 1/4 inch deep. And I will just use a toothpick, get it a little wet there to help me pick up the seeds. Come on. There we go, got one. Now, rather than burying these are supposed to be buried 1/8 to 1/4 inch deep. One of my tricks is, instead of pushing them down into the soil or putting soil across them, I use vermiculite. Okay, I've got some vermiculite in this cup, and I like to use it to bury my seeds. It helps me to judge when they are 1/8 to 1/4 inch deep, better than covering them with soil would. And it helps prevent fungus gnats from going after your soil. that can sometimes be an issue when you're starting seeds inside. Okie dokie. And one thing you don't want to forget to do is label what seeds you have planted. So I am going to get some masking tape and I'm going to write what I planted and then tape it on right next to where I started the seeds. So you can see I have my little label. It says wild garden lettuce because that's what I just planted. And I am just going to stick that on the tray here. And that way I don't have to remember what I planted where. I'm very good at forgetting. The trays that I'm using, these are just trays that chicken comes in. And it works really well for the size. I can do 2 of my soil blockers in one tray. And it's a cheap, easy way to do it. Okay, I am going to do the new red fired lettuce. And by the way, I forgot to mention that all the seeds from Lush Dew are organic, and I love that. Something else I need to tell you, I am starting lettuce now. It is much too soon to put lettuce outside here in Texas. It is too hot and it will bolt. So I'm going to keep these inside where it's cooler. Okay, not bad. I was able to open it without spilling any. That's a good thing. Get my handy dandy toothpick. Come on, I just want one.
Well, you were very successful with this method during the spring season.
Yes.
So we had so many plants. We still have many peppers. We grew some tomatoes, different varieties of tomatoes. Lots of flowers. We love to put flowers into our garden beds. That helps with the pollinators, and it also gives the pollinators that we have out there something to go to. So many types of flowers. We had snapdragons and zinnias, and I can't even think of all the stuff that we have out there. With
Mexican sunflowers, regular sunflowers volunteered.
Yeah.
Let's see, several varieties of vinca. They love the heat. New this year was straw flowers. They're doing okay. Some success. They're making it to flower, some of them.
This past season, since the June timeframe, mid to late June, the weather got hot sooner this year than I think it normally does. It was like we had a very pleasant spring with a lot of rain, and then June came and we didn't get we have not had a whole lot of rain since then, and the heat turned on. It's like summer turned on overnight.
Yes.
And so, we've had, I don't think it's been record-breaking heat this year, but we've had a lot of heat. 90 to, low 100s Fahrenheit for several weeks, and no rain. So that makes it tough for gardening. Yes, 1/2 inch deep.
Okay. So for a 1/2 inch deep, I am not going to add a 1/2 inch of vermiculite on top of these. I am going to push the seed down at least 1/4 inch, and then I will add some vermiculite.
So just so you know, the seed growing guide that we got from Lush Dew, I'll read that to you, that says, start broccoli indoors in warm, well-lighted area 8 weeks before planting outdoors. So that's about right for us, 8 weeks from now will mean that our season, the summer heat, will have broken by then. I think, we hope. And then you want to sow the seeds a ½ inch deep into individual containers filled with seed starting formula, that's what Sarah's doing. Keep moist. Seedlings emerge in 10 to 15 days, and they like to be between 50 and 80 degrees. Before transplanting, move to a sheltered area outside for a week. And that's what Sarah was talking about with hardening off. So you get them started, give them a little, when they're ready to go outside, give them a little shade, let them start, and get accustomed to being outside. So there's some good information in here. So for the final seed block, Sarah wants to do some cauliflower.
The cauliflower that I'm wanting to grow is seeds that were sent to us from Dawn, who is a friend in Cyprus. So I'm really excited to try that and see how it comes out. She has a similar climate to what we have here.
Yeah, Dawn she's got a new YouTube channel named New Beginnings in Rural Cyprus. And I'll put a link to her down in the description as well, so she can see this video. She's such a nice lady. She sent us several seeds, several that we grew this spring. The peppers were wonderful. We also got, I can't even remember. There's quite a collection of seeds that she sent us in a nice little card.
Great gift for a gardener.
So you've got some seeds started.
I've got some seeds started. Some lettuce, which will stay indoors, and at least for a couple months, if it lasts that long. And some broccoli and some cauliflower.
That's a good start to our fall garden.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Is that on the back of a seed packet, sometimes there are special germination instructions because some seeds are picky. And what it says for parsley is that soaking seeds in water for 12 to 24 hours can increase germination rates. And that's what we want. We want them to sprout. Another thing this doesn't say is that parsley likes it better in darkness to sprout.
So no grow lights.
Yeah, don't put your parsley under grow lights. It sprouts better in the dark. Learning things about what you're planting can be very helpful. If I'm planting something that I was like for seeds I was given, or if the seed packet doesn't have that information, I will often go and look it up online, how to grow XYZ, just to figure out what the nuances are, especially when you're growing something unusual. That is very helpful to find out what little tricks work. Does it need to be soaked, or sometimes chilling the seed? That's called stratification. Putting the seed in a baggie with a little bit of soil just to keep it from drying out, or putting your whole container in the fridge for a few weeks. Little tips and tricks like that, knowing what the seed's like, can make all the difference in whether it grows or not. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us today. We hope you have found this informative and even a little fun.
Yes, and we also want to say thank you to Lush Dew for sending this to us today.
Yes, very much so.
We love working with family-owned and operated people, and especially when they're providing really interesting and organic seeds. It's one of the things I know we've struggled with, is finding the seed companies we want to work with.
Yeah.
We use a lot of them. We use the Baker Creek. We use several others. So we're really interested. We really like the Lush Dew, and we're looking forward to seeing how their seeds grow. And thank you for hanging with us today.
Yeah, one quick note. One reason to buy organic seeds is they don't have the same controls, the same kind of regulations for growing seeds that they do for growing vegetables. So when they are growing a crop for seed, they can use a lot more pesticide than they do if it's something you're going to eat. So buying organic seed, you don't have to worry about having that on your seeds. It's our preference for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for hanging out with us today, and
Happy growing.
happy growing. We'll see you next time.